Good morning. Hello, everybody. I wanted to hop in here a minute and just tell you hello, maybe answer a question or so. What I want to talk to you about today or this morning for a few minutes in one of your questions, actually, several of you had this question: how to successfully begin the middle and high school years. Sometimes it can be really scary. It was for me. And like me, you're probably a researcher too. And so we're trying to get all this information that we can to make the high school years the best years. And usually that begins in the middle school years. But first, let me explain who I am for some of those that don't know who I am. I'm Tina Robertson. My Facebook page is How to Homeschool EZ, the letters EZ. My group is Homeschool Dynamics by Tina Robertson. And my site is Tina's Dynamic Homeschool Plus. I've homeschooled well over 20 years. I have some online courses for homeschoolers. What I've done recently, because I've listened to you, is I have taken my boot camp that is for new homeschoolers and separated the workshops into different modules, because sometimes, even though we're not new, there's just some things and some topics that maybe we didn't cover as well in the beginning when we started to homeschool. So maybe we need some of those details. And I roll very detailed. So perhaps some of those courses can help you as well. One of the ones that could help you is teaching the stages of homeschool. I go from pre-K to high school. So you can see the big learning picture. Sometimes we want that. But anyway, that's enough about me, because this is about you. I always want to make these videos about you and answering your questions. So what I want to do, instead of throwing all the details at you, because sometimes that's not very helpful, is just to kind of break this down into a few simple points that really were most important when I began middle and high school years. Like I mentioned earlier, every kid is different. And so just like your journey up until now, you want the middle and high school years to be just as unique as each kid is. That's the reason we're homeschooled in the first place. But what happens is we say that, but over here, kind of looming over our head is this: oh, they're going to be adults. Oh, are we a career track? Is it a college track? Am I going to do enough? Are they going to be prepared for adulthood? I had all those same fears. And I can tell you honestly, no. I didn't get to do everything that I had planned. I didn't. It didn't turn out that way. But I did teach them everything I wanted them to know, to how to find out what their direction was at the time. See, there's a difference. Just like you and I, when we started homeschool, some of us just came and jumped into it head first. But after we get into it and we see that this is going to be our homeschooling lifestyle, then we dedicate a huge amount of time to research, joining groups, finding our peeps, finding our tribe, reading books, going to conventions. And we should. And we should. That's our job as teachers. But see, the same thing that we're doing when it comes to homeschooling, we want to take that hat off of us as teacher, and we want to put it on our child's head, and we want to wear the supervisor hat. That's what happens in the middle and high school years. So what we want to teach them basically is how to find out what they want to know, because there's no way, having adult sons now, there's no way that I can possibly be there, and I shouldn't, for every decision that comes in their life. But having prepared them for adulthood, they know how to tackle a challenge. Yes, there are some things that I want to encourage you to do foundational to help them. But just remember, there's a huge difference in maturity and age between seventh grade, which is normally about 11, 12 years old, all the way up to senior when they're young adults and they're 18. They're going to change a lot more in that time. Now, my first son with middle school, I didn't do what I'm fixing to tell you as much as I did with my other grads. And that was to start in middle school with exploring a lot more electives or options, electives as we call them, options also we call them that. But credit for high school can start as early as middle school. Now, here's the rule of thumb when it comes to counting credit, because that's always in the back of our head. If a resource is a high school resource, then the rule of thumb is that we can count it for credit. Now, let me back up and let's just get this one big thing out of the way too so we can understand. What is a credit? How many hours do we have to fill? Okay, there's two things that I want you to remember. Like I said, I don't want to go very detailed, but some detail, because I love details and I have to know. And of course, you can post your questions here too, and I'll try to answer them because it's for you. This video is for you. It's for your needs, and I want to help you. So the rule of thumb is that one credit normally equals about 120 to 180 hours. Schools vary. That's what makes it kind of confusing. There's no just right or wrong answer. Some have 120, some schools say 135, other schools say 180 hours. Now, if you don't want to keep up with hours, here's what I did with my first one, because there was just some things I was like, okay, this is really hard tracking how much time and how many hours. So you can follow a public school model, which sometimes doesn't hurt with your first one when you're just trying to get your sea legs, so to speak. So what I did was I knew that when he completed a textbook for the year, that was a credit. That equaled 1 credit. So usually 1 credit to complete 1 high school level textbook. Now, like I said, in the beginning, I did that with a few textbooks, but I really am not a textbook lover. So I had to figure out some creative ways. I had to dive deeper into learning how to count the hours. Okay, but the point is that hours can be on core subjects or electives. So that goes back to what I was talking to you about in middle school. What I should have done more in middle school was to do more electives. That's the point I'm making. That's the time when your kids are younger. Some of them are not ready for algebra. Some of them are not even ready for pre-algebra. And used to, back in the day, pre-algebra used to be 9th grade. Well, now colleges are touting that if your kid does that in 9th grade, they're going to be behind for college, and probably will be. But again, if you live in a state where you decide the standards, that's up to you. That's the second thing I was going to tell you. Okay, credit hours, and then the second thing to remember is you have to know your state laws. Okay, let me explain how they can add some confusion to this. Okay, so the state laws say you have to cover these core subjects, and they'll list the core subjects for high school. They may say math and English, social studies, and a science. Those 4 core subjects. Okay, but in the educational world, and as teachers and educators, I want you to understand the difference in what we call core subjects. Because social studies and science are not core subjects that I call up until high school. Core subjects are the 3 R's. The 3 R's. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. You've heard of them, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. But states now use the subject core, and it's not very clear in its meaning anymore. Okay, so I call reading, writing, and arithmetic core subjects, and then the rest of them then add to the core. So that's why sometimes you have to understand terms. But now, of course, if your state law says these 4 need to be covered, then you want to meet your state law. But for the most part, most states aren't going to be that specific. So I want you to understand the difference between skill subjects and content subjects. See, whether a child has a career track or is college bound, I encourage all of mine to keep a math for every year, to do a math in middle school and through every year of high school. Some people are not going to choose a math major or use a career with a lot of math. So 2 years of math for high school is well enough for their teen. Again, your choice, you decide. But I encourage you to always keep all doors open for your teen, meaning if they need a few more maths to get into either a tech school or the college of their choice, I encourage you to go ahead and see if they can do one every year, as well as in English. It's called English, language arts. There's many different topics that can come under the subject of English. It's not just grammar. It can be writing. It's literature, British, American, poetry. All kinds of things come under that general topic of English. So my sons did one English every year, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, because I wanted to keep the subjects balanced. We also did one history. I don't like the word social studies. Again, it's a term used by the current educational world, and it groups a bunch of different topics together, all thrown together, and people don't really know what's in social studies. I like to say history or geography, culture, whatever it is we're studying, and kind of keep maps, keep things separate for my teens. So we did one math, one English, one history, and one science, all 4 years, as well as the middle school. And to me, that created a strong foundation, because then all the other electives or the content subjects are built on that strong foundation. Here's the secret. It's not really even a secret, but I want you to know it's the same subjects you have been teaching your teen up until now. Those same strong core subjects, the skill subjects, reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're the same ones they need in middle school. It's the same ones they need in high school. The hard part, I feel the hard part, is knowing how many credits for high school, total credits. See, back in the day, like even back in my mom's day, and even back when I began homeschooling, 20 credits for high school was considered a great number. Now, colleges scoff at that number, and it's closer to 28. 28. So just, it's a matter of simple math. Say we had 20, there's 4 years. Say if the kid did 4 years, you divide that by 20, you see there's 5 credits. Of course, we have a math, a science, a history, and in English, there's 4 credits for every year. See how you can easily do the math? And then you adjust. And then there's some teens that are very ambitious and they do more credits than that, even up to 9 for the year. But here's the point. What is a year? Now, I kept track of the normal 36-week year, but we schooled during the summer. My teens could get a lot more in. And some things just didn't even go on the transcript. They weren't needed because we were able to do more things in the summer. Okay, I want to share one more point with you because I don't want to make this too long. And like I said, I want to make this about you. I want you to have time to post questions and ask them. But I want to share one more thing about credits. Let me just kind of define this a little bit more while we're on it. Like I said, it's up to you what you define as 120 to 180 hours. I want to talk about breaking those hours down and what consists of teaching instruction during those hours. Because again, that's a call you can make. Now me, I set standards up because I know each one of my kids, just like I know you will set standards up, but I often included things like attitude, being punctual, how neat some things were, depending on the project. I graded on those things. I knew which child was putting forth effort and which one wasn't. Just like you would know with your teens as well. So remember, I talked about usually one textbook is 1 credit. Okay, so now if we don't use a textbook and we're using living books or we're using hands-on or apprenticeship, you can decide how much of that credit you want to count. For example, usually art and PE are half a credit or 60 hours or 80 hours. This is how your teen in middle school also can explore more of their passions. Because when they explore these passions, what I learned with my second and my third one, and that I share with others after that, is by exposing them to more of those things in middle school, it helped them to find a path. Yeah, some of the things they came up with what they wanted to study sounded a little far-fetched to me. I thought, well, how are you going to make a living that way? But we explored it because we didn't want to leave any rock unturned. We wanted to look at all the options and rabbit trails, and that's the time to do it in middle school. So the point I'm making is that you can take the credit hours, the one credit, and divide it into half. You can even divide it into fourths. That keeps a very active semester, if you will, constantly changing subjects from photography to butterfly to diving, to writing. So you can be a little more creative with it. Now, it's harder to do in high school, but it still can be done with some of the credits. But the reason I say it's harder is because some of the material is a little bit deeper. It takes the teen a little bit longer to get through. But certainly dividing the credits up works for electives, what we call electives now. So, for example, my teens would have the reading, writing, arithmetic, or the 4 that we needed for the year. And then we would add the electives. Part of the year, a half credit would be drafting. The other half credit would be ballroom dancing. 1/2 credit for the next year was weightlifting. I had boys. The other half credit was nutrition. You see, so you can divide some of that. You can even do it with the English. Say you don't think your children are going to, have a strong, or you want them to have a strong background, obviously, in English. But the point is, you don't think they're really going to do anything with it as an adult, but still you want to expose them to it, leave all doors open, and it's very good for them to have. So divide the English up. If half of it's going to be about literature, then make the other half about Shakespeare or poetry or something that they enjoy. Any other type of literature. It can be British literature, a focus on that for half of the year. But again, half a credit. That's how you get the mix in there, and that's how you get your teens to explore different topics that he or she likes. But when you do that, when you start like that and you understand how much the credit is, you understand you can divide that one credit into half. So then that means they would do 30 or 60 hours of one subject, 30 or 60 hours of another subject. Or you would make it into fourths. So what would that be? 30 hours of one subject, and then 30 hours of any other 3 subjects that they chose. So it still can be divided into fourths. There's a lot of variety here. Sometimes that as homeschoolers, they don't seize that moment. I didn't realize we didn't have to study one topic the whole year. We could do 4. And it really makes for a lot of variety and spice, but that really will keep a strong foundation for your teen. So let me just wrap it up here, just a few things I want you to take away from this, because like I said, I like to roll with the details and I like to stay on track. But one thing I want you to take away from it is to begin early in middle school with the electives. Let them pursue things that they enjoy doing. I can post some links too on ideas for your teen to explore. That really is the time. They have more time to do that when they're in middle school, because in high school, you're trying to plan for the future. You want to be sure you're meeting whatever career track or college track, so you're looking ahead. Middle school really is the time for them to do that. And like I said, I'll post some of those links. So let them pursue that in middle school. The general rule of thumb is that we count the credits if it's a high school level textbook or a high school level course. You can also create your course. You can decide if it goes anywhere from 120 to 180 hours, but when you do, you want to use that rule of thumb for all of your high school. Don't be changing around, just like your grading system. You choose a grading system and you stick with it all the way through high school. Now, you can use that grading system, but of course, there will be some standards that you might go up and down on depending on the assignment. Like, for example, if it's literature, I have so many, if it's writing about literature, I have so many pages that I want them to focus on. And so I do neatness, punctuality, creativity. There's a lot of things that I threw in, and it depends on which kid it was too. So you want to remember that. So start in middle school with some of those pursuing some of those electives that they have. Remember that going into high school, Try to think of high school like this. It's kind of like a crazy example, but it really is one that I remembered after my first kid. Try to think of ninth grade kind of like kindergarten, and in high school kind of like middle school, sixth grade, or or 12th grade, I mean, rather 12th grade. Try to think of that like middle school, high school, kind of the end. What we want to avoid in ninth grade is kind of socking it to them because this is their first year. I did it to one. I even have a post on my site, avoid the sock it to them in ninth grade, because I did that in my eagerness to want to be sure. And we do that because we're conscientious. There's nothing wrong with that. But I seen that I should have reined myself in a little bit, realizing we have 4 years in front of us. And here's the other thing too, something else I want to talk about. We don't have to do 4 years. Sometimes we have kids that have special needs. Like how can they meet the high school graduate courses? Well, even in public high school, they have an IEP, individualized education plan for them. So it's the same way with you. You know your child's needs. You will adjust to what their needs are. Some homeschoolers have gone 6 years in high school. Some have done 2 years. So you don't always have to do it by the year. You can do the transcript by a subject. I'll save that for another video. But I want you to learn about the foundation. It's the same subjects. You want to keep them spread out. Unless you know for sure they're not ever going to do anything in math, then maybe 2 years. Anything in science? Okay, 2 years. If their science and math go together, if they're going to choose a college or career track in math or science, then you want to keep 4 years. And for my sons, it really didn't hurt just to keep all 4 years with what I call the core subjects. And that's the second point. Be sure you meet both your state and what you know are the core subjects, because there's a difference between the skill subjects, which they really need to be learned in order, and then the content subjects like history and science that can add to it. So remember those two things as you're planning. And then the third thing is to understand what is a credit. It will help you as you're planning your transcript. And of course, I'm here for you. If you have any questions, just post them. And it was good to see you. And y'all have a great day. Bye.